Whenever I go on my phone, I'm constantly flooded with information. Every day, every second, everywhere, new headlines constantly appear. Whenever I go online, I can find out that there was a shooting somewhere, somebody's car was stolen, or even worse, that a new war was declared. Now, regardless of whatever news it is that I just stumbled upon, my curiosity naturally leads me to want to learn more about the topic in order to stay informed. But how can we stay informed? Well, first of all, we can start by watching the news or reading a few articles. And that is because it is journalism and media that keeps us informed. It gives us the necessary details and information that we need in order to form opinions and decide who deserves our support. The moment that journalists start performing their job incorrectly by providing misleading, inaccurate, or just false news, we start forming baseless opinions and standing in opposition to our beliefs. This is very dangerous, as essentially the information on which we function forms the backbone of society. And as Thomas Jefferson once said, it is an informed citizenry that stands at the heart of a dynamic democracy. Modern-day journalism has had a very interesting effect on the political world because of how widespread it has become. Now, politics isn't so much about who has the best policies, but even more so about who's the most viewed, talked about, and discussed. Journalists don't only care about spreading awareness about certain topics around the world. They also heavily care about their viewership, and they will do many things in order to try and reach and maintain the viewership that they desire. An example of this would be how they choose the news that they will cover, or also the format in which they do so. And by far, one of the most popular formats that we've been seeing rising in popularity over the last 2 decades would be short content videos on social media. The European Union in 2021 did a study, and the results show that over 40% of citizens aged 15 plus use social media in order to try and stay informed on current affairs. This number is only going to grow. But why is that? Well, shorter videos demand less attention. Shorter clips, shorter captions, shorter headlines. They all make it easier to consume a lot of information without necessarily a lot of retention. We consume information at a rate higher than we can remember or really understand it. Although short videos informing us on the political landscape of the world aren't necessarily bad, we can still have truth in them and they can still convey information. It does show a worrying concern that perhaps at a point, journalists and media are willing to sacrifice some details, some depth, and some accuracy on the news they cover in return for simple engagement and attention online. But in this talk, I'd like to focus on another way that we are captivated by them into listening to the news that they try and spread. That would be through emotions, specifically anger. Anger is a very unique emotion. When we're angry, we start being more impulsive, more irrational. We lose a lot of our critical thinking skills. When we see a post online that makes us angry, we're way more likely to go into comments and argue, try and defend our beliefs and stance. We're also more likely to share the post to our closest friends and family, which might share the similar views and opinions as us. This is also quite dangerous, because then our anger spreads like a plague, not only to our closest people, the people closest to us, but also to our local communities and broader society. This anger that is inside of us when we see such a post only incentivizes journalists, news outlets, and other forms of media in order to continue framing news, even if at the beginning it may not seem so controversial, to try and twist it and manipulate it in a controversial light in order to play on our emotions. It has a similar effect on individual political parties or members by encouraging them to purposely act controversial so that they can have more time on our feeds to boost their publicity and attention. When we're angry, we stop seeking the truth in its entirety. Complicated situations start becoming simplified, reduced to nothing more than villain and victim. And that is not what an informed citizen does. An informed citizen strives from the truth, regardless of what they feel. Another emotion commonly used against us is our humor, our sense of humor, our laughter, our joy. However, this may feel very counterintuitive. I mean, anger is a completely different emotion that we feel compared to our laughter. And that is because I'm not talking about comedy in politics. Comedy has been used for a long time in politics prior to the modern day, in political cartoons and caricatures, rightfully so, to criticize hypocrisy and corruption and policies of opposing views. However, the comedy I'm referring to right now is that of mockery. By simply mocking the other side, we're stripping them of their beliefs, of their views, their morals, and the reasons for which they stand for them. And we're doing so by wrongfully, most of the time, by discrediting them from, again, what they stand for. Simply labeling them as stupid, irrelevant, or dumb is way easier than having to engage in a debate ourselves. Even when jokes online about politics may feel like they're harmless, they have a big effect on our subconscious and how we view the world. A famous example would be a presidential candidate in 2004 called Howard Dean, who during a speech that he gave in Iowa made an awkward shout. This scream was later massively viewed on social media, constantly replayed on news outlets, and also commonly mocked by comedians. At that point, Howard Dean's campaign for presidency essentially came to an end. Not because people started disagreeing with him on his policies or how he viewed the world or the changes he wanted to introduce, but because they couldn't view him seriously. Nobody wishes to give their vote to somebody that they can't view like a potential leader, that they can't view as competent. They don't want to spend their time listening to somebody that, in their eyes, is nothing more than a joke. This is exactly why mockery is very dangerous. We cannot allow ourselves to not want to engage in a debate because making fun of the other side is simply easier. And that leads me to another point I want to talk about, and that is, what should we do? We live in a world where everyone's constantly fighting for our attention. So how can we counter it? We know we cannot be unbothered. I mean, most of us here have social media, and these posts are practically everywhere. It's impossible to not at least once come across a post that challenged our beliefs or challenged how we viewed politics. We also cannot ignore it because we all have emotions, and once we see such a post, it will for sure invoke some anger, some laughter, some sadness, whatever. Well, the answer isn't that simple, but it's self-awareness. This requires a lot of self-control, but I believe that when we see a post, regardless of whether we agree with it or not, we should try and set our emotions aside, our previous beliefs aside, and ask ourselves, is this post constructive at all? What does it intend to do? Does it intend to just make us angry? To dismiss somebody because of their views? Does it make people want to find out more about a topic? Because at the end of the day, we have to stay open-minded, especially in the modern day where everyone has access to social media, everyone has access to AI and editing software, and is easily capable of making offensive or controversial posts made to play on our emotions. At a time where even official government accounts are participating in this constant argument without any contents, without any subject, where everyone is just angrily spreading their views without any substance to them. We must remain self-aware and we must remain objective, because an informed citizen isn't somebody who uploads the most posts or who has seen the most posts. An informed citizen is the one who knows the most outside of them. And a responsible citizen is one who understands that. Because the moment we let the media manipulate our emotions, we also let them manipulate our beliefs. Thank you.